What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some Destiny 2 news. And as always, we have plenty of updates from Bungie today. They firstly talk about exotic class item attunement. That feature is now expected to drop during episode 2, and there's some additional bits of clarification about some of how it will work, so we'll talk about that. Plus, there are apparently a couple of new teasers related to the 10th anniversary event for Destiny 2, which are coming out of GCX this week, so we'll touch on that. And Bungie have more updates regarding the name change issue that occurred last week. Plus, they've updated their Destiny 2 restriction and ban policies to include input macro loot farming. There are a few caveats involved, so they talk about what's changed, what could affect players and potentially result in bans. But on top of that, there are a handful of other updates for this week. So quite a few things to talk about in the video today, guys, ahead of any potential reveals for Act 3, which of course is kicking off next week, so we're probably going to get those fairly soon, but otherwise, for now, let's talk about the updates we have. And if you enjoy the video, a rating really does help us out on the channel. But now, let's get into it. And firstly, Bungie shared a preview of the exotic class item attunement screen that they're working on. So, starting in episode 2, which should drop sometime around the start of October, they'll be introducing perk attunement on exotic class items. So, looking at the screen here, attuning to a perk will increase the chance for exotic class items to drop with the selected perk, but only one perk may be attuned to at a time. We should say this is an in-development change, so this isn't the final version of it, but obviously the two different columns for the exotic class item perks are displayed here, and as it says, we can only attune to one specific column and a specific perk in that column, so there will still always be a degree of RNG. I suppose overall though, this does sort of reduce the amount of RNG involved, or reduce one of the layers of randomization. I think some players had hopes that we'd be able to attune all of the bonuses, but at least in this build it doesn't appear that that is a possibility. And DMG clarified this is a screenshot from a development build. The team is still fleshing out a few things on the back end, and features need to be tested, plus bugs, if found, need to be fixed. So it's entirely possible that things could change between now and when this actually goes live, but I'd be curious to get your feedback on what a system like this could look like, and whether you think that will improve things. Obviously it is an improvement overall, but given that this is still nearly a couple of months out, I'm sure players will have plenty to say on what Bungie have announced, so give us your thoughts down below. The class item attunement change, though, does add to the list of changes we know about coming in Revenant, and otherwise Bungie have confirmed that they've got updates to some underperforming perks on exotic class items, especially for Titans. Plus, there'll be buffs and reworks for underused exotic armor pieces. That will include Blight Ranger, Mask of the Quiet One, Skull of Dire Ahamkara, and more. Plus for weapons, Bungie have said they're looking to buff underperforming subfamilies like adaptive SMGs and rapid-fire heavy grenade launchers, increasing shotgun range in PvE, and buffs to numerous underutilized exotic weapons like Huckleberry, Chaperone, Bad Juju, Exteris, and Prospector. And they've also said there'll be a significant weapon mod rework, with 10 new weapon mods being added. And otherwise, the new content in Revenant will focus a bit more on Fickrel and the Fallen, and Bungie have spoken about this sort of vampire Fallen aesthetic, as well as showing off some pretty cool weapons. Some of these may be exotic. And they also spoke about a potion crafting system, which will be part of the loot system for the game, new armor, and more. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about Revenant, which of course will be dropping at some point in the first half of October. Another quick update here, but of course a couple of weeks ago it was revealed via the database that Destiny 2 will be seeing a 10th anniversary event, which is anticipated to drop sometime in September. Of course that is when the 10th anniversary will actually be. And over this past weekend the GCX event was held in Florida, and a bunch of folks that actually went to the event have said that DMG briefly mentioned the 10th anniversary event in front of players and suggested that there is some stuff which hasn't been data mined yet, but that will be shown soon. Obviously, this wasn't a press release, but more of a sort of casual commentary made at an event. However, a lot of people that were at the event have indicated that this is indeed correct, and that essentially there will be more to the 10th anniversary event than we currently know. And for the moment, we know that they're bringing out an armor set, as well as a hunt for some secret chests on the Pale Heart, and it would appear that those chests will be part of actually earning that armor set. Plus, there'll be a new title. However, it would seem that there is another layer, potentially, that we haven't heard about just yet. So now there will be speculation, of course, as to what that could be. I would temper expectations. I'm sure there could be some cool elements to it. We'll just have to wait and find out. But again, this will be happening some point during Act 3 in the first couple of weeks, potentially. So it probably won't be too long before Bungie actually come out and give us some information about it. So let us know your thoughts on that. There have been a couple of other updates regarding the name change bug that happened last week though. Bungie say they've identified what caused that problem and they've applied changes to prevent the issue from happening again, but they are investigating options to address player accounts that were impacted. And they add that it is not possible to revert this name change, so there isn't a way that they can simply go back to the names we had before. And they say as well they're planning to distribute name change tokens to all players at a later date, but they further clarify it's not possible to simply click a button to undo the name change. This is a tool that's never existed, and this is why they'll be offering a name change token once they solve the underlying issue. And they've said that the vast majority of names that were changed were in error and will be able to be used again. Only the most egregious names probably won't be able to be used, and that includes things that are against the community code of conduct. But finally, they say we understand that this has been frustrating and we're working to get things out the door as quickly as possible. So obviously, there are a handful of challenges in getting this problem fixed quickly for Bungie. I would anticipate probably in the next week or so we'll hear more about it, as it does appear to be a high priority issue. It's just unfortunately the case that names being reset by the system wasn't something that Bungie accounted for, and so there isn't a way to recover them without them essentially being reapplied by use of that name change token. So yeah, kind of unfortunate issue, and I totally get players that are frustrated about it. Let's just hope that Bungie give us some more info soon. A very last thing to mention here, but Bungie have updated their Destiny 2 restriction and ban policy to include input macro loot farming, and they've added that starting today, they've revised the restriction and ban policy to include the use of input macros to automate gameplay. And while input macros can be beneficial as an accessibility tool, we intend to keep it that way, as some have been leveraging these tools to automate gameplay. And so players detected using automation to circumvent idle detection or perform automated activities to earn loot may be restricted or banned. And loot includes, but isn't limited to, XP, materials, or drops, including things like exotic class items. And automation or circumvention includes, but isn't limited to, the use of programmable controllers, keyboard and mouse adapters, advanced macros, or artificial intelligence. So for players who've been using macros to farm class items on the Pale Heart, for instance, moving forward, that will now technically be a bannable offense. Although they add they have no plans to retroactively issue bans or restrictions, any bans or restrictions related to this policy change will be issued for future infractions. But players who've previously used macros for the above purposes may receive an in-game message warning against future use of them. And separately, a small amount of account actions have been issued over the last few days for unrelated terms of use violations. And so it's definitely something to be aware of. Of course, not everyone uses automation in various formats to actually farm loot, for instance. And obviously, these tools can have different layers of detrimental effect to other players, right? So if you're farming class items on the Pale Heart using a macro, obviously it doesn't have a direct impact on other players most of the time, or at least it didn't in the case of farming random free roam chests. But there are other instances in match-made activities where it can actually spoil the experience of other players. So there are multiple kind of layers to why these things are used and the impact that they actually have on other players. So Bungie are taking a much firmer stance on this, but they do clarify that they have no plans to issue restrictions or bans to checkpoint bots under this policy change. So for anyone using a checkpoint bot, Bungie have said they have no issue with that, but they do say give us feedback on what activities you most often use checkpoint bots for and why, as that feedback could be used for feature development in the future potentially. However, for the moment, they've added that they don't see this as a major issue. So let us know your thoughts on it down in the comment section. It is just purely worth keeping in mind if you do use those tools, that it could have implications for your Destiny account in general moving forward. For today though guys, that's what we have to speak about. So as always, I hope you found the video interesting. I'll keep you posted when we get some information about Act 3. Of course, we'll get TWID tomorrow, so it seems most likely we'll hear a couple of bits at least during that press release. So stay locked and loaded here on the channel. If you've enjoyed the video, a rating below really helps us out, and be sure to get subscribed so I can keep you posted. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.